Hello and welcome to the 01581 Let's Talk. Today we'll hear from our Assistant Town Manager and our Town Assessor. All things town today. We'll be right back. Hi and welcome back. I'm joined by our guest, Kim Foster, our Assistant Town Manager. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excited to be here again.
Yeah, again, right?
Yeah.
I know. I love repeat guests, you know. So you're here to talk to us today about the Senior Needs Assessment.
Yes.
So I'm going to just kind of turn it
Sure.
over to you.
Sure.
You've got some updates, and
I do.
know our audience will be interested in that.
I do. So the study that was actually titled Aging in Westboro Community Needs Assessment was completed, and the full report has been available on the town's website. So I just want to remind folks, it is a 90-page document. It's available online. Happy to print copies if anybody needs help with that.
Yeah.
And then since the report was released, May 16th, our research team from UMass Boston that did the work came out, gave a great presentation, a summary of the findings, good in-depth review of the survey information, and that was recorded by Westboro TV. It's available online.
Yep.
We also have slides that are available online too.
So just to the assessment, for folks that kind of may have heard about it. So hard copies are available through the town manager's office, the senior center, the library. Okay, excellent. So folks can go and kind of peruse that there. They can also request a hard copy if they want it. Because it is a long report, there's a summary at the beginning, and then there's sort of a summary at the end.
There
right?
is, correct.
So if you want to kind of forget the sandwich in the middle.
Correct.
Right.
And while it's 90 pages, there are a lot of graphs and tables, and it's very visual report. So while still a little daunting, a lot of good information, and I think it's the type of thing, if you have a specific interest, you can probably pretty quickly find where that is in the report.
Yeah. Well, folks can grab a cup of coffee and kind of like over a couple days, and hopefully generate some really good conversation in the community.
I hope so.
Now that we've done this. So,
and again, keeping in mind that the information came from the community, we had over 1,500 respondents to our survey. And just quickly to recap, some of the overarching themes around aging in Westboro related to housing, and that's a lot of breadth and depth to that conversation.
Sure.
It's everything from options for downsizing or perhaps identified lack of options, as well as for individuals who are interested in staying in their own home, supports to allow them to do so, everything from making the home safe to the financial ability to do so.
Sure.
Also, we heard a lot about transportation needs, particularly for our older seniors who may have less interest in driving, even if they have the ability, or those who no longer have the ability to drive.
But they want to remain active and be out in the community and socializing.
Absolutely. And then we also heard about an interest for additional programming. There's recognition that we do offer some great programming already, but an interest in expanding that. Things around educational, sort of lifelong learning opportunities, as well as more social and recreational opportunities.
Sure.
The last thing I'll highlight is we heard a lot about the needs of caregivers, both, and those would be individuals who themselves may be in that 55 plus age group, as well as what you sometimes hear referred to as the sandwich generation. And how do
I look
we
like a piece of bread right now?
I'm right there with you. I
I
think many of us are experiencing that firsthand. And the challenges, and how do we as a community support those things.
Those are really interesting discussions of like, what is the role of the community as families, are more spread across the country or in some cases the world. Like, it's like that, what is that role? What support services should be there? What, and what's the role of town government versus maybe kind of community supports?
Exactly. And I think that's a good segue.
Unplanned.
So we're at the point now where we are looking at next steps. So we have the report that has a lot of good information, some recommendations, but now we want to move forward with an implementation process. And what we have identified, we are creating a small working group. I will be part of that. We will pull in members from the Council on Aging, the Senior Center Director, someone from the Affordable Housing Trust with sort of that housing space expertise, a member of the Select Board, and we're also looking for some community participation. We also then will pull in, as needed, as topically appropriate, staff from the library, the recreation department. So we are cognizant of the need to look at this very broadly from, it's not just things that the Senior Center or the Council on Aging are responsible for, but we've always viewed this as a town-wide project.
Right. So, because we know that and for folks that have visited or for those that haven't, I mean, the Senior Center provides a lot of programming services, but it's only accessed by a certain portion of the population, which is fine, but there are a lot more seniors out there, and by the word senior, by the way, I'm talking about, kind of 50 plus, because I'm in the group and we're all going to be there. So before you know it, I'm going to be like in that 60 group and so on and so forth. So this is intended for that long-term planning to address all of that. And so I think it's really important that folks understand that this survey or the assessment recognizes all the great work that has been done, and I think that comes through clearly. But I would say almost equally, it recognizes where we need to be going, and that is the point of the assessment. It wasn't sort of intended to be a reflective.
Correct.
This is where we've been. And thank you very much.
Exactly.
It's really like, where do we need to go? And some of these things are big issues. I mean, housing you talked about as one is not one we can just flip a switch on and fix.
No, it's much easier to set up a senior softball league than it is to address the lack of affordable housing options.
Excellent.
In part, what we're looking to do in the working group is identify some of those longer range, bigger resource requirement issues and approaches to resolving those, as well as some of the, if you will, low-hanging fruit. Our goal is to develop a 5-year plan that will identify objectives as well as those specific action items that will help us have some movement. I think we have a history when we do studies or reports, they don't just sit on the shelf. We really use them to guide our work.
We're constantly referencing back to them and making sure that we're aligned with that. And we've got a number of those other studies to sort of inform, to kind of check the work of this. So we've got the strategic plan, we have the master plan, and we have other studies that other departments have done that will continue to inform that.
Yes, and then in part, we will also be identifying what are the resources that we need, what are the resources that exist that we will tap into. The other thing I just want to talk about is a very clear theme in the report was, and not just this report, but we're constantly being reminded that you can never over communicate. So one of our immediate, we view it as an immediate charge, is to help figure out opportunities to push information out in ways other than the ways we are already doing so. We recognize, the Senior Center has a monthly newsletter, the Senior Scene, that is available. But for folks who don't necessarily see that, we are looking at other opportunities. We do have social media. We recognize not everyone does, but there's never the one size fits all. So we're working through our recreation department to promote programming that maybe the programming lives at the Senior Center, but I'm, reading the recreation and I know, my parent might be interested in this program. So the library is also a fantastic community resource to help us advertise.
Well, sometimes I think, and I think it just sort of happens naturally, it's not intentionally, there kind of can be like a siloed feeling. And because people just kind of get into their work and then the users of those services think, well, I only sort of think about, this organization, this department this way. So that, I think that we know cross collaboration happens now, but just even being able to kind of, I mean, I know the recreation is a huge distribution list, as does the library. So if they can take some of those programs and share that out, that's fantastic.
And we really see too, as we come up with some of the action items and as we work to address some of the needs, that it is cross-departmental, multidisciplinary collaboration. You know, the library's already jumped in, is interested in doing some lifelong learning programming. The recreation department has many ideas for some different activities that would get seniors, especially as we're coming into summer, seems like a great time. And one of the things we've really recognized is it's okay to try things and find out that they don't work or people don't have an interest in them. So we're really looking to expand the offerings in that way.
And I think the survey, the assessment, and therefore kind of the work that comes out of that does recognize we're talking about decades of ages in this senior group, right? So what I'm interested in as a 50-something-year-old is different than maybe someone who is 85, right? And so the assessment recognizes that, and the programs that we develop, or the concepts,
the array
the
of
work,
offerings,
how town structures services maybe differently, will need to reflect that, and it's not a one-stop, one size fits all. So
it's not.
Great. So I'm sorry, you may have mentioned this, the work group is going to be formed shortly.
Yes, we'll start jumping into it.
And there will be council on aging members
Yes.
that are part of that. Yeah, I think you mentioned that. And then that plan is expected to be delivered to whom and when?
October 1st is our goal to have a report ready. We would share it with the select board.
Okay.
We will also, along the
I should have
way,
known that. No,
be
I'm just-
working and sharing information with the Council on Aging. Well, they will have specific representatives on the working group. I think there will probably be some broader conversations with the full council. But yes, then we would likely bring it to the select board. And the timing would be as we start looking at the next budget process. If we have identified needs and resources, we'd have an opportunity.
We just have to plan for those budgets.
We do.
Excellent. So for folks that are interested in continuing to follow this work, probably one of the easiest ways to do that is to follow the work of the Council on Aging, because this will be a recurring theme as part of their monthly meetings. You can always follow the select board's work, and if you have any questions, you can contact our town manager's office, give Kim a call, and she'd be happy to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Take care.
All right. Hi, and welcome back. I'm joined by guest John Steinberg, our town assessor. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so this is your first time on the 01581, but on the old show, you were a frequent guest.
Yes,
so,
I had to change my mindset from Frank and Mary to 01581.
yeah, so, and thank you for being here. So you've got a whole set of slides here. You're gonna walk us through some changes in the department, as well as talk on a related matter that we were just talking about with Kim, related to our seniors, some of the exemptions and other programs. So take it away.
Sure. Well, I guess the first thing to discuss is that we've upgraded our billing system. And so along with the changing in the billing software comes some changes in online payments. It does not affect people who mail their checks or walk in their checks. It only affects people who actually register with Invoice Cloud. So if you're just going online, paying your bill, there's no changes. But for people who auto pay especially, their auto pays will not happen unless they register again. There's a whole new portal, a whole new system being set up, which will distinguish the fiscal 24 upcoming bills. And to complicate it, it's only for real estate and personal property. So if you pay your motor vehicle, there is no, or water and sewer, there's no changes.
Okay.
At this time.
Sure.
Right.
So if, the short here is, if they have any questions, call your office.
Call the Treasurer Collector's office first.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, call the Treasurer Collector's office first, although if you call up my office, by all means, we'll help you out. But
that's the direct line. the
correct.
treasurer.
When you go to pay online, if you register your account or have an online payment, I urge people to register in the new portal.
Yep.
You'll need a new username and password.
Yep.
And then you'll have to put in your auto pay information again.
Okay.
And this is really to protect their information. They'll set up on the new portal, and then it will go forward.
Okay.
One distinction is all the old bills at this time will still be through the old portal.
Okay.
So I know it's sort of complicated and two things going on.
Sure.
But for most taxpayers
Okay.
who either, if they escrow and their mortgage company pays it,
Yep.
not a problem. If
Okay.
they mail their check,
Not
no
a problem.
problem. If
Okay.
they walk in,
Yep.
not a problem.
Okay.
So
Okay.
most
It's a
people
small-
don't have to worry about
Right,
it. Yeah.
right, yeah.
I mean, we looked at it and we're reaching out to people. We're
Yep.
blasting an email to the specific people who this applies to.
Great.
Because we have their registration, so they're going to get an email blast.
Okay.
They actually already received one. We sent one out, I think, the beginning of last week.
Okay.
They'll get another one when the link is live.
Yep.
The link won't be live until closer to the billing time.
Okay.
And then we're going to put something in with the tax bills as well. We're trying to get the word out there as much as possible because we are concerned about, the short number. I mean, out of,
Right.
I think, 6,000 tax bills, I think we're talking, less than 0.5%
Sure,
of people.
sure,
So it's a
yeah.
small number,
Yeah.
but we want to make sure they get the word.
Yeah, well, good. All right, well, appreciate that update. And now let's transition to, I think what is a really important development and that is the home rule petition change.
Yeah, so
Change the slide here.
the home rule petition, what that means is essentially the town approved at town meeting us to request the legislature of the state to approve a custom law for the town of Westboro. And this was developed out of a mission from the select board to put together a committee, the Senior Taxation Relief Committee.
Yes.
And we worked for a year to come up with some ideas based upon what others had done to get this through the legislature. And to, I think, our credit and the credit of our legislators, it happened really quickly.
Yep.
Governor Baker signed it into law on his way out the door, which we were really pleased with.
Wet signatures,
That's right.
he's walking out.
That's
I
right.
love
In
it.
fact, we didn't even know for a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but what it is it's based upon the circuit breaker income tax
Okay.
credit.
Okay.
So for people who are seniors and qualify for that on their income taxes, they have to receive it on their income taxes.
Okay.
They can qualify for this exemption.
Okay.
And the exemption amount will match whatever they receive as the circuit breaker.
Okay.
The circuit breaker qualifications currently are if you're single, it's individual, it's 64,000.
Okay.
If you're head of household, it's 80,000, and if you're married couples filing a joint return, it's 96,000.
Okay.
There are a couple distinctions that we did for the town of Westboro.
Sure.
One is the assessed value. The assessed value for the circuit breaker is $884,000, which when we looked at the housing stock in Westboro, we thought that might be a little on the high side.
Yep.
So what we adopted was 10% over the last year's average single-family tax.
Okay,
So
okay.
I know it's a lot of numbers,
Sure.
but that
Well, we have the slide here for folks that are they're listening to this and then they're like, what does this really mean to me?
right. And
Right.
so the average, the assessment must exceed $722,411.
Okay. So if someone's listening to this and they're going, wait a second, first of all, I'm not even sure, how would they know if they qualify for circuit breaker? Is
Well,
that like their accountant?
It would be their accountant. The first
Okay.
thing they should do is they should speak to their accountant. And
Okay.
if they don't file a tax return, this is a really important message for people who don't know,
Yeah.
they can still receive the circuit breaker. The
Okay.
state will actually issue them a check
Okay.
if they don't make enough money and they qualify for this.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know that, so they
Okay.
should speak to their accountant.
Okay.
I know the senior center puts together a program where they help people with accounting and accountants.
Yep, okay.
And so they could reach out there.
Okay.
But their accountant would tell them if they're getting the circuit breaker.
Okay.
And then they would provide, the applications will be available in the assessor's office.
Okay.
Probably early fall.
Okay.
And they can come in and fill out an application. They'll have to provide us supporting documentation.
Sure.
And then the Board of Assessors will review it and approve. One of the caveats is that relative to assets, the language is they cannot have excessive assets.
Okay.
And people will ask, well, what is excessive
Right,
assets?
right.
And the answer is they can't have second homes. They can't have, they can't be making less than the qualification and have assets
Yeah.
that exceeds, what would be common, I guess,
Right,
for people in the
right,
segment.
right. So intended to help those who really need the
Yes,
help,
yes.
as opposed to those who, if you will, have kind of investments in assets that they could potentially,
Correct,
kind of
correct.
leverage. Okay, and so again, this the home rule allows them to basically get the same match on their local property tax.
Correct,
Yep,
correct.
okay.
And so last year, excuse me,
Yes, some
the circuit breaker for calendar '22 was $1,200. And
Okay.
so they could get a reduction of $1,200 on their
Okay.
tax bill. Now, not everyone gets $1,200,
Right.
but whatever they get, they could get a match.
Okay.
And one of the nice things about this is that they can get this exemption in addition to other exemptions.
Okay.
So if they qualify for another exemption, they can still get it
Yep.
and get this on top of it.
Great.
And so I think it was a real proactive move.
Okay.
And I give credit to the taxpayers at town meeting that voted for this
Yeah.
and supported us,
Yeah.
because I think it's a good opportunity
Yeah.
to do something beyond
Right.
what the state normally has for
Right.
statutes.
Right, and thank you to, I know you served on the committee, and thank you to the others that worked. And this is kind of how these ideas come forth. Someone says, we should do this, and then a group has to do the work.
Yeah.
And then it's got to be supported at town meeting, so thank you to them. So that's sort of a good segue to the other exemptions that are available for our seniors.
Sure. Well, the town does a lot. In fact, the town has maximized all of the available statutory exemptions that are available. So they've actually doubled many of the exemptions. In fact, some of them they've doubled upon the doubled.
Okay.
And I think it ties in well with the senior needs assessment in doing as much to make it
Sure.
affordable
Sure.
for people to stay in
Yep.
Westboro. One of the bigger ones, the 41C, just to walk through a couple of them, it starts at $1,000 and can go up to as much as $2,000.
Okay.
And that amount is based upon what their value and tax bill is
Okay.
relative from year to year.
Okay.
It's got some requirements.
Yep.
One of the things that Westboro has done is they've reduced the age from 70 to 65.
Okay.
And they've increased the income and assets for this one substantially. In fact, they adopted a local option that allows for them to be increased every year by a cost of living adjustment determined by the state. And so
Great.
this past year, it was 6.5% on top of what was previously. So you can see they've been increasing over time
Yep.
relative to the low original income and assets, which many communities still use.
Okay, okay. And then we've got 17D, which is another type of exemption.
Yeah, so people who don't qualify necessarily because of income
Yep.
for the 41C can
Okay.
still be eligible for the 17D.
Okay.
There's no income requirements.
Okay.
It's just assets. And
Okay.
so if they have assets, it's less money. It starts at $175
Okay.
and goes up to $350. So it
Okay.
is less money. One of the
Yep.
things that I'll point out relative to the income for that 41C
Sure.
is there is a deduction for Social Security, and that amount changes.
Okay.
But if your income is over, so for example, if it were as a single person over the 25,000,
Yep.
there would be a deduction from that for that Social Security allowance, which is determined by the state every year.
Okay.
So I urge people to come in
Yep.
if they're close. If they're in that range,
Okay.
they should ask.
Okay, so I'm just, by
Yep.
quick math, so, if someone's, their income is, let's say 35,000, right?
Right.
Including Social Security. So you're saying that 8,400, 8,500 is deducted, and that would potentially get that
Correct,
person pretty
correct,
close as a single
correct.
person?
And that
Okay.
it might not be that 8,400. It depends on their status, single, married,
Yeah, right,
filing
right,
jointly.
right.
But there is a reduction. So if they're borderline
Yep.
and they're collecting Social Security, they should ask us. They
Okay.
should come in. They fill out an application. We will help them with the application. We do need financial paperwork
Yep.
to support it.
Yep.
But we're happy to help.
Sure.
So.
And these exemptions, just to be clear, aren't liens on the house, they are just annual
Correct.
exemptions?
You have to apply annually,
Yep,
but they are just annual exemptions that reduce their taxes.
Yep.
One thing to note is they are applied to the actual bills,
Mm-hmm.
so they apply after January 1st. People can submit applications prior to that,
Okay.
but they don't get applied to the tax bills until after January 1st. So if
Okay.
they're getting $2,000, their January bill and their fourth quarter bill will be reduced by $1,000 each. And that may
Okay.
credit them towards what they've already paid.
Sure,
But
sure.
it's a whole.
But it's just
yeah.
the cycle of things.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, good. All right. And then many of our viewers, I think, are familiar with our senior and veteran tax program. There are currently 60 slots, and when we were talking before the show, you were saying that's actually a pretty high number
Yes.
relative to other, kind of communities.
It's a very high number
Okay.
compared to other communities. And it's often that not all the spots get filled. It is a challenge sometimes for the town to provide positions for it, because it can be tough for particular departments to come up with work or positions
Sure.
that aren't currently being done. But,
Right, right.
But it can be anything. I know if they have a skill set, if they're an engineer, they might be able to get help out the engineering department.
Yep.
Whatever their background may
Yep,
be.
yep.
I had a paralegal once working in my office,
Okay.
helping organize all my
Sure.
cases.
Sure, okay.
So it can be really helpful. Even the people who become greeters
Yeah,
in town hall,
yeah.
I can tell you, it's helpful to my office because people will constantly, I'm the first door on the left.
Right, right. So people are like, I gotta go there.
Yeah,
Right,
people
right,
come
right.
in and they
Yeah.
say, where do I pay my taxes?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and we have
Downstairs.
to direct them.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's helpful.
Yeah.
It really provides a service. And we've adjusted as a town to maintain the 125 hours as minimum wage has increased.
Yes.
So for a
Yep.
long time, it was 125 hours at minimum wage, not to exceed. At one time, it was $1,200.
Right.
Then they adjusted it to $1,500, and when that happened, the town adopted the $1,500 so
Right.
we could get as much as we could. And now when minimum wage came up to $15, the town once again at town meeting voted to go back to the 125 hours at $15 an hour so they can get $1,875
Yeah.
reduced from their taxes.
That's excellent.
One thing to note is it is considered income for federal taxes.
Okay.
So they will get a W-2
Okay.
for that because
Sure.
they become temporary employees for the town. And,
Sure.
But it is not taxable for the state. But
Okay.
people should be aware of that.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
sometimes they
They're like, wait a second.
Yeah, and they can get that income and it can put them over the circuit breaker.
Got it.
So
you gotta
they
kind
have
of-
to weigh which one's going to
Yeah.
help them more.
Yeah. Okay, good. But it's also a great way, I think, I hear it all the time that, seniors in our community are looking to give back, right? They want to do something. And so this is a great way to be out there, helping in the community, engaging with people, socializing, and obviously getting a benefit to your taxes.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
People love it. And
Yeah.
again, it's a great service for departments because we have work that it can't get done because we don't have the staff
Sure,
maybe.
sure.
Or it's low fruit,
Look, yeah, exactly.
but it's really helpful.
Yeah, good, good. And then we also have the tax deferral program. So what is that?
Right, so the tax deferral program is a program for those that qualify. It's simply income-based.
Okay.
And what's amazing about it is that the statutory interest that accumulates on deferrals is 8%, but the town of Westboro has gone as far as making it 0%. So
Okay.
this is a no-interest opportunity to defer their taxes, put them off. And there's a lot of people that want to pay their taxes
Yeah.
but are struggling to do so.
Sure.
So they enter into agreement with the town, and the town records a lien on the property.
Okay.
And people really get confused about that.
Sure.
It's not necessarily a active concern.
Yep.
It just means when they sell their house or they pass away, then their taxes are paid out of the equity in their house.
Sure.
I mean, that's
Sure.
And what's nice about it is people are then paying their taxes in full. They're
Right.
just paying them later.
Right. And to your point, that's at a 0% interest for
Yeah,
Westboro.
no interest. So it's really a great opportunity.
Right.
And they can receive other exemptions to reduce the amount that they're deferring.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so they don't have to defer 100%.
Sure,
They
sure.
could, in some years, pay half the
Yeah.
taxes and only defer half the
Okay,
taxes.
great.
So it's really a very flexible program that, frankly, not enough people
Yeah.
who own their houses outright
Yeah.
take advantage of.
Well, if we think about our, if you think about the average kind of value, assessed value of a home here in Westboro, I mean, even in our tax rate, when you sell that home, I mean, there's often, should be, like a lot of asset there to take care of that deferral.
Yes.
And so why not? Stay in the community, tap into the program. So for more information, since we're just right up about time here, we do have John's, your office information here on the screen. We'll make sure folks know that they can come in. First office to the left when you go into
That's
Town
right,
Hall.
first office on the left.
Yeah, so if you have any questions about these exemptions, about the tax deferral program, please ask the question, stop into the assessor's office, and become informed and tap into these programs that are designed to help you remain here in Westboro. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the 0158.